Big changes are happening in U.S. immigration, and if you've been following the news, you know that Trump's policies have completely reshaped the system. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services (USCIS) has undergone some dramatic transformations under the former president's administration, and these changes have had a huge impact on both applicants and the entire immigration process. From stricter eligibility requirements to major shifts in the way green cards and work permits are issued, the Trump-era immigration reforms have altered how thousands of people experience the immigration process. Whether you're in the midst of your own immigration journey or just curious about what's been happening behind the scenes, understanding these 6 key changes is essential. In this video, we'll break down the 6 major immigration changes that have shaped the USCIS landscape under Trump. You'll learn how these shifts have affected people seeking visas, green cards, and work permits, as well as the broader impact on U.S. immigration as a whole. What changes are here to stay? Which policies have had the most significant effects? We'll dive into all of that and give you the inside scoop on how these shifts are shaping the future of U.S. immigration. If you're wondering how these changes affect your chances of immigrating or staying in the U.S., this video is for you. Whether you're an applicant, an advocate, or simply trying to understand the current landscape, we've got you covered with everything you need to know. So hit that like button if you found this information valuable, and don't forget to share it with others who could benefit from understanding these game-changing policies. Your support helps us bring you more essential updates. So let's dive in and explore what's really been happening with USCIS immigration changes under Trump. The changes that took place under Trump's administration regarding U.S. immigration are nothing short of monumental. These transformations were meant to reshape how the U.S. interacts with immigrants, both those already living in the country and those hoping to enter. Whether you were directly affected by these changes or simply watched them unfold, it's important to understand how these policies have made their mark on the system and what the long-term effects might be. From stricter eligibility criteria to a complete overhaul of the way visas and green cards are granted, these 6 significant changes under Trump's administration have altered the immigration landscape, and their impact is still being felt today. One of the most impactful changes introduced by Trump was the significant reduction in the number of green cards and visas granted. Under his administration, the U.S. prioritized a much more restrictive approach to immigration. This meant that fewer people were able to successfully navigate the complex process of securing a green card or other long-term visas. While the intent behind this move was to prioritize American workers and reduce what was perceived as a bloated immigration system, the reality was that many deserving applicants were left behind. For individuals hoping to come to the U.S. to reunite with their families or seek employment, this meant longer wait times, more paperwork, and an overall tougher road to permanent residency. The reduction in the number of green cards, along with stricter requirements, made the entire immigration process more competitive and, for many, more discouraging. This restriction also extended to the H-1B visa program, which allows U.S. companies to employ foreign workers in specialized occupations. Trump's changes made it much harder to qualify for an H-1B visa. Previously, individuals with advanced degrees or specialized skills had a higher likelihood of securing an H-1B visa, which ultimately allowed them to work and live in the U.S. for extended periods. Under Trump's policy changes, the eligibility requirements for these visas became stricter, and the overall number of available visas was reduced. The result was that many high-skilled workers from countries like India, China, and others were left scrambling to find other pathways to remain in the U.S. For many of these workers, the H-1B visa was their primary route to securing permanent residency, and losing this option meant having to explore more complicated alternatives. But the changes didn't stop there. Another major shift in immigration policy during Trump's administration was the attempt to limit access to asylum. Historically, the U.S. has been a safe haven for individuals fleeing violence and persecution in their home countries. However, Trump's approach aimed to make it significantly more difficult to seek asylum in the U.S. One of the most notable changes was the Remain in Mexico policy. which required asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their claims were processed in the U.S. This had a profound effect on many people, particularly those fleeing violence in Central America. Instead of being allowed to seek refuge in the U.S. while waiting for their asylum case to be heard, many were forced to remain in dangerous conditions in Mexico, often with little to no legal support. In addition to the Remain in Mexico policy, Trump introduced a series of changes to the asylum process that made it more difficult for individuals to qualify. The administration implemented various procedural hurdles, including requiring applicants to submit their claims within a set period, limiting the use of work permits for asylum seekers, and narrowing the scope of asylum eligibility. These changes made it harder for many individuals to seek refuge in the U.S., which further shifted the country's immigration policies toward prioritizing border security over humanitarian concerns. But even with these tough measures, Trump's administration didn't stop there. One of the most controversial changes to the immigration system came in the form of the public charge rule. This rule was designed to make it harder for individuals to secure a green card or visa if they had previously used public assistance programs, such as Medicaid or food stamps. The intention behind this rule was to ensure that immigrants coming to the U.S. were self-sufficient and wouldn't become a burden on the state. However, the rule was widely criticized for disproportionately affecting low-income individuals and families, as well as immigrants of color. One of the lasting impacts of the public charge rule was that it made the immigration process more complex, with applicants needing to carefully assess their financial standing before applying for a visa or green card. Immigrants who might have been able to live in the U.S. with the help of public assistance now had to reconsider their options. For those already in the country, it created a difficult dilemma. Should they seek out services to ensure their families' well-being and risk their immigration status, or should they forego the help they needed in order to preserve their chance at securing a green card? The public charge rule created a sense of anxiety for many who were just trying to navigate an already complicated system. Another major change that had far-reaching consequences was the revocation of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA program. DACA, introduced under the Obama administration, allowed individuals who were brought to the U.S. as children, often referred to as dreamers, to live and work in the country without fear of deportation. Trump's decision to end DACA left many of these young people in limbo. While the courts temporarily blocked the termination of the program, the uncertainty surrounding their futures continued to grow. For the hundreds of thousands of individuals who had benefited from DACA, the threat of deportation loomed large, and many were left wondering whether they would be allowed to stay in the country they had called home for most of their lives. The emotional toll this uncertainty took on dreamers and their families cannot be overstated. Furthermore, Trump's immigration policies made it clear that the U.S. was moving away from policies that were generally welcoming to immigrants and moving toward policies that were far more restrictive. The administration's emphasis on building a wall along the southern border and limiting immigration from specific countries sent a strong message to immigrants that they were no longer seen as contributors to society, but as potential threats. This shift created a more hostile environment for immigrants in the U.S. and led to a significant increase in anti-immigrant sentiment across the country. Despite these changes, the impact on immigration has been far from one-sided. For many immigrants, these policies created barriers and challenges that made it harder to succeed in the U.S. For others, however, they may have found ways to navigate the system and ultimately find success. However, one thing is clear. The immigration landscape has forever been changed under Trump's policies, and many of these changes will have lasting effects for years to come. As we move forward, it's crucial to understand that these policies are not set in stone. With the change in administration, we may see some of these rules and regulations relaxed or even reversed. However, the effects of Trump's immigration changes continue to shape the experiences of immigrants in the U.S. today. The road to reform will be long, and it will take time to address the challenges created by these policies. In the meantime, immigrants must continue to adapt and navigate a system that is increasingly complicated and uncertain. The future of U.S. immigration remains an open question, And while it may feel like the rules are constantly shifting, one thing is certain: the fight for fair and just immigration policies will continue. For those who are affected by these changes, staying informed and prepared is the key to success. As always, knowing your rights and options can make all the difference. If you found this video helpful and want to stay updated on the latest immigration news and changes, don't forget to hit that like button. Your support helps us bring you more valuable insights into the world of immigration, and we appreciate you being part of this journey.